Over the last 25 years, I've had the privilege of interviewing and highlighting some truly interesting people. Everyone who is anyone, both the famous and the infamous, from presidents and their first ladies to kings and queens, movie stars and pop stars, captains of industry, heads of state, sports personalities, innovative entrepreneurs, and some pretty fascinating everyday people. Today, I'm proud to introduce you to Susan Matorin, who uses her work as a senior lecturer of social work and psychiatry at the Weill-Cornell College of Medicine to serve families and individuals in need. Susan, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to be with you.
Susan, so let's talk a little bit about your background. What led you to practice social work at the clearly prestigious Weill-Cornell Medical School?
I was thinking about that question, and I think it started with my parents in Massachusetts who helped actually Holocaust survivors come to that town and settle. They were always interested in people. And, you know, as a kid, I was kind of bored with that. And then I came to see that it really sparked my interest in people. And then I was lucky at college I was kind of lonely and isolated coming to a big Ivy League college, privileged to be there, but I really developed a love for psychology and sociology and anthropology. So at that time, I was very interested in medicine, but actually I needed role models. I didn't really have models of professional women that had careers like that and families, and I knew I wanted that. I shouldn't have needed role models, but I did. So I settled on combining psychology and sociology, and for me, it was a great blend actually to practice. And then I was recruited to Cornell from Columbia because I met the chair on a educational trip to China. And he thought I handled myself well. So when they were looking for a department director, they called me in.
Oh, that's wonderful. Absolutely. And it's interesting how you were looking for mentors and now you can be the mentor for so many
Yes.
other young women who are interested in this kind of career. It's really passing it down.
Yes.
So, Susan, I was just thinking that you combined literally the study of people and how we relate to each other. So as a lecturer, you actually specialize in social work in psychiatry. So help me to understand how those two fields are related.
Well, psychiatry, and I work with wonderful people, both at Columbia and now at Cornell, really focuses on diagnosis and talk therapy and psychopharmacology, medication. Social work is broader. It really looks at the person maybe with those symptoms or with a health emergency, but in the context of their family system, their culture, their spiritualism. It takes a broader look at the person. And to me, that fleshes out the way and it looks at resilience and how really strong people are in a way sometimes that psychiatry, as good as it is, doesn't tend to do that so much. It tends to be more symptom focused. Social work is broader, I'd say. So that's what I try to teach.
And it seems as if you also look at how environment can influence behaviors.
Yes, very much so.
So share with me some of the prominent problems or issues you encounter in social work so we can actually make this plain for the viewer.
Well, right now, I think I'm tortured by income inequality, to be honest with you.
Fair enough.
So I work with clinic patients who are so impoverished and so vitally dependent on food stamps and Medicaid, which in New York is a terrific safety net. And they're so grateful for that. And being assaulted all around the country and other places where they couldn't get psychiatric treatment, they couldn't get meds, they couldn't get anything. And then my private practice, people that are quite resourced, that you would find very resourced, and yet they're overwhelmed with stress and anxiety, very anxious parents. They're kind of squashed between stressors. So it's very different kinds of problems.
I had a conversation with Senator Kamala Harris about the issue of poverty in the United States and how that truly impacts on a person's stress level as well as just their physical being. Because if you don't have enough food to eat, or you're worried about feeding your children or your elderly parents, because a lot of people are in that sandwich generation, that then adds the stress. And so it's problem on top of problem.
Absolutely. And there was a piece in the Times in the business section about working people, mothers, largely single mothers, but a single dad out of work, and how the stress of not having money wound up with them taking it out on their children and then feeling enormously guilty. and then also feeling they're having more time with their children. So the other side of the coin is they're out of work, but they actually have time. And as a professor at Columbia said, what does that say about us, that you need to be out of work to have time with your children? On the other hand, they were so stressed, Star, by losing their mortgages and not having food money, that they were irritable with the kids and then feeling very guilty about that. And of course, that creates emotional problems for everybody.
Absolutely. And I was reading, Susan, that because we are in this global pandemic state and more people are in their primary residence together, meaning partners and spouses and families and generations are sort of cloistered together, some of the things that you all might see because there's interaction from school and work, you don't see because it's housed inside of that one little quarantined area.
Yes, and some people are doing fine. I mean, take Chinese culture, Indian culture. Those are traditionally three-generation families. They're proud. They share an apartment together. They share a house together. That's not really the American way so much as we see. Many people are not living near their parents. So a lot of people are not doing well being home all day. You would think, oh, this is kind of fun to hang out, but it's actually not. A lot of people don't have adequate Wi-Fi service. They don't have privacy, even to have therapy sessions. I have patients, they don't have privacy to talk to me because everybody's in and out, in and out. There's just a lack of physical space. So it's a plus minus, and some cultures are doing better with it than others, actually.
I just was very curious with the kind of work that you have done. This is your area of expertise. And I see that you've written a number of letters and books. Let's walk through some of those that you think might be appropriate for this conversation.
For this conversation, I would say that the letters to the editors that I write is the most appropriate. The other publications, Star, are more in academic journals. I wrote about corporatization of healthcare, which is extremely timely now, but not necessarily on everybody's front mind.
Yes, but I still think it's fit. Would you please do not go over that, because that is very important what you wrote. I was fascinated by it. Tell me more about that.
Well, it means that a lot of us that went into this fields to help people, we're drowning in computer work, which you've read about, which has been written about in the Times and in the New Yorker, and where people are not making eye contact with their clients because they're so busy typing, where people feel that it's just a preponderance of technology rather than the humanistic interactions that help people. And a lot of people, really professional as well as clients, really feel this. The other thing I wrote about is adolescence and family therapy, which is a subject dear to my heart. And then I've written for lay people in a social work book about how to get help as a couple before things really expand. The letters, I think, are more of interest to lay people because I write a lot about stigma of mental health, where there's huge obstacles to get help. I've written about grief. I've written about, the latest letter was about divorce, making sure that you get a consult before you disrupt a whole family. Divorce could be a good thing. You could go on and have a happier life. But to take such a major disruption without having a professional consultation, there's a lot that happens that's not good with that. So those letters are about that.
It seems as if you can run the gamut in human relationships.
Yes.
Interpersonal relationships between a spouse or a partner, a parent to a child, the sandwich generation, as I described a little earlier, because the level of stress that that generation might feel having to take care of small children as well as elderly parents. And then just being a woman, and I'll share that with you, being a woman who is now, maybe the head of households, because a number of women in our country have taken on that role as the head of households. And so those levels of stressors, I have to imagine, have found their way into some of your letters.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating, Star. Younger generation is less interested in historical writings in my field, but actually there's a major paper in the 50s by a famous family therapist, Nathan Ackerman, that talked about the minors being out of work. The women went and supported the families, and the minors took to drinking and got depressed. Now, how relevant is that when Detroit closed its factories? The women managed to go to work and become billers in hospitals. They reinvented themselves, and the men missed having lunch. They missed the assembly line. So how relevant is that? 40 years later, it's the same issues. And now, especially with women shouldering such responsibility. Can I say something about the sandwich generation? The Academy of Medicine asked me about that, and I was concerned that they were only studying middle income people and leaving out working class people. So if you're a sandwich generation woman like you or me that can take a taxi to an appointment or get someone to help with your child, that's very different than someone that has a job that can't leave it to take care of their mother and meet with the doctor. I just want to make that point.
Absolutely.
Where you are with the sandwich depends whether you have resources or not.
Absolutely. So outside of work, how do you give back to the community?
Well, I was pretty busy raising a family and being supportive of my late husband's career. I'm sorry to say that he just passed away in March, non-COVID, but he had a major career in psychiatry. And it's been quite challenged to deal with that loss. And I definitely love being the support person for his career. He was an expert in sexual orientation, gender issues. He made major contributions. And he was very supportive of my career, but I had no problem being his support person and raising a wonderful son. So mostly what I did was rely on not too much other volunteer work, but a lot of board work, the Jewish Family Service, social work boards, the Helen Rear Board. That's kind of how I give back. And then I just tried to be as available as I can to my family and friends for whatever they need support or wisdom. I pride myself on being there for them, 2 a.m. in the morning. That's just who I am. I really would like to write more. I had started a book and then the computer collapsed called Reclaim Dreams, helping people get their lives back with treatment within confidentiality, being able to tease out the ingredients on resilience and good treatment to help people recover from psych and medical illnesses. So I guess I have a dream somehow to do that and to continue writing and teaching. That's what I love to do.
And speaking of that, what advice would you give to a student or a professional seeking to transition into social work?
Now you really have to seek out mentors. I had great social work mentors in my career at Columbia, terrific, and until I became one myself at Cornell. And these days, it is so frantic and frenetic and corporate that you're lucky to be working, but you really have to find your own people. We don't have the career crafting and support that I had. It's just not there right now. It's very administrative, that's fine, but it's not really developing your professionalism. So people have to seek it out. And then to have a happy personal life. I mean, that's what I encourage people to try to have balance in their lives.
Well, I have to tell you, you are a walking example of that great quote, the happiest people I know are those who lose themselves in the service to others. And so thank you so very much for the work that you do for individuals, for the community. You're helping all of us try to figure this thing called life out. And we certainly do appreciate it. We appreciate your compassion. And as we like to say, it's not enough to be compassionate, you must act. And you've been doing that for a long time. So thank you very much, Susan.
Thank you so much.